Today we have an entitled parent story of a grandmother treating their grandchild like they're still a kid when they're 19 years old. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, my hoarding entitled grandmother refuses to leave house. I, 22-year-old female, love my grandmother, 70-year-old female, with all my heart, but she is very difficult to live with. She moved in around 6 years ago due to a hurricane that damaged her roof. She was only supposed to stay in a couple of months because we were trying to fix her roof, but also she had to get some kind of surgery for her arm. We were understanding and we just didn't want her to stay alone in her now damaged house while healing from surgery, so we had no problem with her being here at first. Within the first few days of surgery, was acting sickly, constantly needed help with this or that, but whenever family came over and all the attention was on her, talking to her about things she likes, she's no longer sick or fragile. She's running up and down the stairs, showing off everything she bought. She forgot she was a frail old lady. She only came here with a basket of clothes and a suitcase. We thought she came with a suitcase because she travels a lot, because she's a singer and tours from time to time. Looking back at that now, she was probably plotting to move in with us. When she first moved in, my brother wasn't here, so she got to stay in his bedroom. It didn't take much time for the room to get kind of stuffy because she loves shopping and buying things, especially things she doesn't need at all. That huge room, and for her to take up so much room within a month was just crazy. Another weird thing is that she'll buy a whole set outfit and only wear it once to her performance, so try to imagine how much clothes were stuffed in my brother's closet. Now try to imagine her buying more clothes, so now she has to put it in my closet. Now try to imagine within the span of her career as a performer, all the clothes and shoes she's bought, all in her house, in a single room of her house, that for some reason she never wants to touch or wear again, but she refuses to get rid of, even though she completely abandoned her house. Now imagine her buying a storage garage just to fill up with more useless things that she's never going to look at again. A couple of months later, my brother wants to move in. She's ticked and asked my mother why is her own grandson moving back into his childhood home, and then asked her, my mom, where is she supposed to stay? My mom basically told her she can go back home since her arm healed and she came back from her tour, so she should have enough money to fix the roof. She said a couple $100 from her tour and can afford to move back. Complete lies. So she asked if she could move into my mother's personal room. My mom has 2 rooms, her bedroom that she shares with my dad, and her hobby room. She barely slept in her bedroom, so that hobby room was her personal room. She did everything in that room. She ran a personal blog for her clothing that she crafted herself. She did makeup tutorials, she made beautiful wigs, etc. She was basically a content creator while also being a hairstylist. She needed that room for work and content. My grandmother knew all these things and insisted on moving in that room, so my mom reluctantly let her move in there. My mother is now miserable and is frustrated because of this. She's basically put her life on pause because Granny won't move out of that room, and it looks horrendous in there, and I swear there's a rotting odor in that room now. I can't explain everything that happened in the past 6 years, but I'll try some of the things my grandmother does that makes everyone hate living with her as best as I can. My mom's room was pretty spacey, so when my grandmother moved there, she did what she does best: she hoards. We can't even fit in that room anymore. There's only a small space to walk in and out of. There's some weird rotting smell in that room, but I think either from the piles of clothes or the fact that my grandmother showers only once a month. I counted, so I'm not exaggerating. We can all tell when she's showering because of weird noises she makes in there. She blows up that freaking restroom. Imagine a quiet, peaceful night and you're about to fall asleep when suddenly you hear Rack City by Tyga inches away from your bedroom, in the restroom. Mind you, your bedroom is in front of the restroom, so you have to hear a 70-year-old woman hit it and crap in there. That's what I'm dealing with. Or how about whenever someone's done cooking? Normally in this household, we have to let each other know when we're done cooking, or else we just have no clue. But you have someone who listens to every single sound or movement, know when you're done cooking before you ever tell anybody, then proceeds to eat most of the dinner. Now we barely cook because someone keeps hoarding all the food. Not only that, but when they do cook, they cook for themselves only. Ever had a roommate that listens to your every move, listen to every conversation you've had in the privacy of your own room? That's my grandmother. She tries so hard to avoid my mom because my mom keeps trying to discuss with her about when and how she'll be moving out. My parents' bedroom is right next to the room my grandmother's in now. She listens to possibly everything they say and do in there. Everything. She knows when my mother is moving around. She knows when we're with our mother and talking to her about whatever. I'll never forget how we complained about how grandma eats all the food and cooks for no one but herself. How we were tired and felt so uncomfortable around grandma. The next day, she cooks again, but surprise, she actually made us something. It's 4 fish patties and like 2 French fries. It's a pattern too. I know she hears us complaining because the next day she'll order a pizza or something. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a peephole in my parents' bedroom. Also, let me add, we don't care about her cooking for us. We always appreciate it. It's just we notice that she's really selfish about it. God forbid we go out to eat too. If we come back home with food for ourselves, she complains and says we are treating her like crap. Don't ever mention fixing up her house. Don't mention moving her back into her house because I promise you will wish you didn't. There's a range of things she'll do. The first few times we try to talk to her about the house, she would just complain about how she doesn't have the money. When she tours, she's not making much money and how she's basically being paid pennies to perform. Except that's not true, because when we do go to see her perform and she's done with her gig, she gets paid. Usually about $2,000 or more per performance. So imagine when she goes in a month-long tour, she'll brag about it on Facebook about how much she's getting paid and where she's going, so we know it's really not about the money. Then, during my freshman year in college, crap got more drastic. Now, every time my mom mentions the house, suddenly my grandma is all ill and can't walk and needs to be pampered or taken care of. She had a pinched nerve in her back, but acted like she got shot or something. Every time I would leave my room, she'd moan super loud. So when I tried to use the restroom, she would moan loud like she needed help. Then I stay in the restroom and then she goes quiet. Then I walk back to my room, she starts moaning loud again. Then I stay in my room for a second and she's quiet, dead silent. She was faking it. I started to ignore her because I knew she didn't help. Then she gets up, walks to my mom's room to talk to her. My mom plays dead because she doesn't want to deal with her either. Granny sees my mom is asleep, and then magically, my grandmother straightens up her back and dashes to the restroom as if nothing was wrong with her. She still does this every time we try to talk to her about the house or about moving out. Suddenly, her back hurts and she can't move. Then she'll call the ER and comes back home the same day because nothing is actually wrong with her. I know you're probably wondering, why not move into an apartment? She's Miss Rich Bench, so why not tell her to move into an apartment? We tried, it didn't work. Actually, she was the one that kept insisting to move into an apartment since she knew we wanted her out of the house. She said that in an argument with my mom, and my mom actually took her to go shopping around for apartments the next day. Granny just had to double it, I guess, because as soon as they found the nearest apartments, Grandma said she needs to go to the ER. She thinks her blood pressure's rising. So full of crap. So now you're wondering, why not get her to move in with someone else? We tried that too. We regret that so much. Grandma finally contacted my uncle because suddenly she gives a crap about her only great-grandchild. She spends the whole day there, then comes back home with some bull crap. She told our uncle that she was getting mistreated and that my mom was going to kick her out and leave her out in the streets. My uncle for some reason believes that despite knowing how narcissistic she is and starts a whole argument with my mom. My mom explains to my uncle what is actually happening, and he's dumbfounded to find out his mother is doing what she does best. Then he offers to my grandmother a room in his house if she ever leaves ours. My grandmother later refused because there isn't a nearby airport and nowhere she can shop at. We are all somehow still dumbfounded at her consistent, self-centered, narcissistic, and self-serving personality. That wasn't even the only time she went around accusing us of mistreating her. When the ER came to our house during one of her fake episodes, she told one of the people taking her to the hospital that she was so sick and she hasn't eaten in days, she said. We were all about to crap ourselves. My butt was starting to hurt from how tight I was clenching it. We just couldn't believe she would say that. We were cooking for her, heating up soups for her, buying electrolyte water for her. We were taking full care of her, and that's what she decided to do, throw us under the bus for no reason. Luckily, nothing happened after that, but she still does from time to time complain to someone that we're trying to throw her out to the streets. She loves playing a victim. Unsurprisingly, she also wasn't a good mother to both her children and pets. The best way I can describe her relationship with my mom is pretty much that movie Mommy Dearest, because she treated her daughter like crap when my mother was a child. My grandmother always made sure she had the best clothes, shoes, and hairdos, while her children struggled constantly. She abused my mother the most. She would find any reason to hurt her. As my mother got older and my grandma got none the wiser, my grandmother was expecting everyone to treat her like a celebrity. She's still like this. She thinks she paid her dues and believes now that she is fully entitled to live here with us, despite everyone wanting her out. She fully expects everyone to take care of her, even if she mistreats them. For pets, I don't even understand. She'll get a pet, takes care of it for a while. Pets grow old. Granny now hates pet and wants it to die. Why even own one if you're going to be like that? Her last dog also lived with us until she, her pet dog, passed away. She despised that dog. She literally wanted that dog to die. The first time her dog was sick, she did absolutely nothing to help it. We had to take care of her dog because she wouldn't. Turns out it was a treatable infection and it was taken care of. She just went back to resenting her dog. We get a new dog and Grandma just grew to resent her dog even more. We pretty much cared for her pet dog until she unfortunately passed. Grandma didn't really care and was basically being theatrical with her grief, just the worst. When her pet was alive and we had our own pet dog, she would try and take care of our dog while completely alienating her own. She's just awful. She insults everyone and is extremely bigoted. She loves degrading others over their appearance while not looking too good herself. She loves making fun of overweight people, despite gaining over 50 pounds within a few years. She also forgot her grandchildren are also pretty overweight ourselves. She'll smile and call me pretty and my brother handsome, but she'll insult her other two grandchildren who don't have to deal with her. Send help. I mean, everything OP said about them described a pretty terrible and intolerable person. But personally, it's the dog stuff that cements it to me. It's one thing if you take your family for granted or you're doing all of this in some kind of terrible fishing act for attention and niceties and whatnot, but people who treat defensive animals the way she has treated them is really indicative of their true character. And to me, this lady seems actually rotten. I hope for OP's sake, there is a point in their parents' lives where they actually grow a spine and force this terrible person to be accountable for themselves. Our next story is, my mom has a breakdown every time I tell her I'm moving out. I'm a 22-year-old female. I just finished college with my BSN and got my RN license earlier this week. I've been offered a position in my desired specialty the next state over, about 5 hours away. The city is double the size of my current town and has much higher crime stats. But it's a good opportunity, and I'm excited about starting a new adventure. The only people who are not excited for me are my family, my mom especially. She is just so angry at the prospect of me taking this job. She's mad that the pay is lower than my other opportunities, that there's no sign-on bonus, and that I'll know no one in my new city. She ignores me when I tell her that new grad positions in my specialty are few and far between, that I'm not signing a contract that locks me to the hospital, that the hospital has excellent ratios, that I'm 22 with no significant other or children tying me to my hometown, that I have no significant assets to lose if I do fail, making this the best time to take a chance. She's just so focused on being angry. She keeps making passive-aggressive comments about how I feel that she didn't support me enough through college, which isn't true. I paid my way through my bachelor's degree on my own, and she hates me saying that. I know she'll be hurt if I don't involve her in the moving process, but when I do try to involve her, showing her apartments, looking at furniture, etc., she blows up and accuses me of shoving it in her face. Last night, she tried once again to convince me to apply to other jobs closer to home after she asked what my plan was, and I gave her the same answer I've been giving her for over a month. When I pointed out that these jobs were at hospitals with poor ratios and bad reputations, HCA facilities, and not in my desired specialty, she blew up again, told me she's not arguing with me, and went to bed for the night. I'm just so exhausted and beyond that I'm hurt. Her neighbor's 19-year-old son just left for the Air Force, and she talks frequently about how awful his stepmother is for being mad about him leaving when he's such a sweet, good kid. I've spent my entire life trying to please her. I didn't even apply to schools outside of my hometown when I graduated high school. I paid for my degree so my parents didn't have to shoulder the burden. I've worked 2 to 3 jobs around the clock since I was 18 despite being a full-time student. I've never tried drugs. I barely drink. I've broken up with partners to make her happy. I'm very involved in helping with my chronically ill younger sister and my delinquent little brother. I am in a constant anxious state of trying my best, if that makes sense. A constant march towards an unattainable goal. And yet I'm not good enough, nor responsible enough, nor ready to try to be independent. I love my mom and my family. I feel so guilty about leaving that it's literally eating me up inside. I'm supposed to move in a week from today and I have no idea how to leave on good terms between us. She keeps giving me bills for various things and I'm worried that she's going to try to charge me more once I'm actually gone, and my savings will be totally depleted. Sorry for the rant, I'm just exhausted at this point. So if OP is exhausted and they're worried that their bank account is going to be depleted, is it really worth it to try to keep those lines of communication open and ultimately pay those bills? Like, are they really anything that she could even take you to court for? Like, is there a lease agreement that OP's trying to weasel out of? Otherwise, I don't see how they're even actually on the hook for whatever bills. This next story is, my mom wants me to hand over all of my salary in her hands once I start earning. So I'm 20-year-old female. My mother and I were talking about my studies, future plans, jobs, internships, and entrance exams last night. And she asked me, I want to see how much of your salary you'll give me in my hands once you start earning in the future. A little backstory, my mother has 3 sisters, and my grandfather was the only earner in the family at the time. So my mother and aunts would hand over all of their earnings to my grandmother. My parents are divorced and my father was toxic. He used to take my mother's full salary and give it to her as needed. She had to ask him for permission to spend her own money. Back to the story, I asked her why I should give her my entire salary, and she explained that she and my aunts used to do the same. I told her it was different back then because there was only one earner in the family and 6 mouths to feed. Whereas now it's just the 2 of us. She became angry and began verbally abusing me. She informed me that if I decline to give her my salary, she will not bear the expenses of my wedding in the future and I will be the sole payer. She also stated that she does not want me to ask her for free help in the future. I asked her what she would do with my salary, to which she said that she'll make savings of her own, and also it's the return of all of the expenses my education caused and will cause. I told her that I don't mind giving her some expenses every month as help. I would have done so regardless, but expecting me to hand over my entire salary to her is a bit much, because after all, I would need it as well. She angrily said that she hopes that I end up with a husband who would do the same, who will take all of my salary and give me only what I need, like pocket money. After I told her how much she disliked my dad taking her salary and giving it to her only when she needed it. Well, here's the thing, OP's their own person, and clearly OP has their head squarely on their shoulders. I doubt OP will allow themselves to end up in a situation where the same thing could happen. So her wishes and desires for OP to fall into the same trap she did, I mean, it's nothing. The only way OP would end up there is if they allow somebody to do that to them. Our next story is, my mom thinks that my fiancé should shoulder the whole wedding expenses. She literally was disappointed when my fiancé asked me what I was willing to cover for our wedding. He didn't demand nor impose, he was simply asking. But my mom got offended for me? Her line of thinking is, he is the man, he asked your hand in marriage because he believes he can provide for you. Which I believe is very sexist and an outdated way of thinking. I have a career, I don't mind helping out with the expenses, and I want to show my future husband what I can bring to the table and that we're a team. Why are parents belonging to Generation X so entitled? Is it bad if OP's last line gave me whiplash? Because I always heard that Generation X was like the generation that finally broke free from baby boomers and stuff. Like Generation X is supposed to be like the cooler parents and whatnot. Maybe my generation-ometer is out of whack. This next story is my mother and pregnant daughter. Hopefully I write this right. I'm just irritated with my mother at this time. Some backstory before I get into it. My mom and daughter are not the closest at all. I have 4 kids and none of them are really close with my mom. She doesn't really put in effort to actually spend time with my kids. I've been in the same house for 10 years, and I can count on one hand how many times my mother has been here. She doesn't like to drive, but will drive hours to go see a man. Well, recently my oldest daughter found out she's pregnant. She's not even 12 weeks yet. She told me right away and we're pretty excited about it. We waited for her first appointment and ultrasound to make sure everything is okay before we started telling everyone. This is normal to do, right? Well, my grandpa was coming into town to visit my mom, so we felt this was a good time to tell them both together. My grandpa is excited. Mom acted fine while grandpa was around, but now switched. She's messaging my daughter and making her feel guilty and she should have known earlier, especially before certain other people, saying things like, at least she has some time to get used to this now. Like, what the freak? You don't even try to be a grandparent to my kids. Why would you expect them to tell you things first? Get used to what exactly? You don't even help with any of your grandchildren now. Are you suddenly going to help with this one? It's so frustrating. I just needed to vent some. It's so rich of her to be like, well, you should have told me earlier. I mean, I need to take some time to process this. Like as if she's part of the generation council in this family. Like she sits at the throne of the grand matriarchy of the whole thing. You can't do like the bare minimum familial contact and then get upset that you're not looped into things first. This next story is, grandmother treats me like I'm still a child when I'm 19. As you've read in the title, I, 19-year-old male, have a grandmother who adopted me when I was 15, who treats me, who is 19, almost 20, like a 10-year-old. I have to ask to go anywhere, and if she says no, it's tough crap. I have little to no freedom. I can't go out with friends barely. I can't have people over. I can't even have a conversation with her about why I think it's unfair that she's giving me an absolute no without her threatening to call the cops if I don't leave her alone or telling me to get out. Well, last Friday, she did the same thing because I wanted to go out on New Year's. She told me to get out and threaten the cops, so I left around 2 hours later. Fast forward about 15 hours, and she's put up a Facebook post looking for me, / a missing persons post. I came back home and now I can't go anywhere because I need to be punished for what I did. I did what she told me to, did I not? Can anyone give me advice on what to do in this situation? I would say if you have any other relatives that you could possibly lean on that aren't toxic and cancerous to you, explore those avenues. Otherwise, try your best to get a job. Try to be as independent as you can. Find a roommate and move into a place somewhere. I mean, basically, move out and get away from her. You're old enough that she can't control you, but sadly, you are old enough that she can try to kick you out. Our next story is, my stepdad tried to wrestle me despite my wishes. As the title states, my stepdad wanted to wrestle with me about 45 minutes ago. He also said nobody likes to have fun with me, and I said with my sandwich in hand that no, I'm tired and way too stoned and have school tomorrow. It's 11:30 where I am, and he slammed me into a wall and I right hooked him, ran to my room and locked it, still with my sandwich somehow. I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt that he was drunk and we wrestle from time to time, but tonight I felt extremely unsafe with what happened. And just now did I get out of my panic attack because it felt like the beatings I got from my bio dad rather than a fun sparring. I think I'm going to go to a friend's place for a few days till this situation cools down. But I'm going to go to bed for tonight and want to know what else should I do? Well, obviously it's not okay that they did what they did, and obviously it's very concerning, alarming, and understandable that OP is so upset. I would say take the time you need to calm down and then try to talk to them about this. I mean, maybe he can be apologetic about it. Even still, drunk or not, I don't think they should have acted that way regardless. I think if OP's okay with the idea of having a chat with him when everybody's sober and everything's clear and everybody's kind of had some time to come away from that, it wouldn't hurt, especially if this seems out of character for him. This next story is, entitled mother expects family member to give her child expensive item for Christmas. Entitled mother shows up at the family Christmas with the gift she bought for her daughter. She brought her daughter's gift with her. She had ordered a drawing tablet and said that she thought it was a tablet that could be drawn on with a stylus. It was just the plain drawing tablet that connects to a tablet or computer. She bought it knowing that my brother would let her daughter use his actual tablet to play with the drawing tablet. He did indeed, but when the kids started using it wrong and too roughly, he tried to tell them the correct way to use it and was harshly rebuffed. Entitled Mother made comments about my brother giving her daughter the tablet. My brother explained that he still uses it and it was a bit too expensive to just give away anyways. More comments were made about it being ridiculous that he would not give her daughter the tablet because she never sees him use it. Finally, as they were leaving, Entitled Mother's partner asked if they were taking the tablet with them. And Entitled Mother made a tacky comment saying that they weren't because my brother all of a sudden wants to start using it again. Not a super dramatic interaction, but the entitlement blew my mind. She purchased the accessory without the main product and then brought it over expecting the product to be given to her child for free. What the freak? I mean, isn't that kind of like a commonplace thing in general for gifts that you give people? As in, you'll gift it to them if it's something that they can use, play with, or like if it's a book or something, but you're not going to go to their place and see them actively reading the book or using whatever device. Like, you can't just assume because they're not using it 24/7 visibly in front of you that they're not using it. That was just a dumb leap of logic there. Our next story is Wife Blamed by Parents. My parents and family members have not consistently seen me for the last 3 to 4 years now due to COVID and my wife, who they believe has caused a lot of the tension and separation or lack of presence around them. The background, without trying to make it a novel, my parents were Vietnamese refugees escaping the horrific, nonsensical Vietnam War and settled in the States. Culturally, in most Asian households, it's customary to always respect the elderly and parents. So, no matter how wrong they may be, from how they raise their children or family, to making questionable financial decisions, it's something that's not questioned or argued over about all too much. It's tolerated and accepted, and we all move along life that way. My parents are loving individuals that cared and loved their children. But in certain aspects of my life, my parents, my mom especially, would have a bit of control and influence over my life. Now, enter my wife. My wife can be very opinionated, a highly critical thinker, and direct, which can be seen as rude, cruel, mean, etc. So that can be taken aback by those who aren't used to being challenged around individuals like her. However, it doesn't mean that she's wrong, as she's able to reason and back up her beliefs and stance. When or if she senses things that aren't moral or ethical, amusing or acceptable, she won't have it and will stop associating herself with people who are harming and disrespecting her, even myself. That's where their conflicting views come into play between my parents and my wife. Me being in the middle of all this, I definitely can see the issues from both sides. Ultimately, I sided with my wife as she helped and allowed me to grow independently from my parents. At the same time, I do feel my parents are doing their best to establish what it takes to be a loving family with what they know, but there are some flaws to their teachings and implementation of it, with some selfish intent to take advantage over their own children's finances. What are your guys' thoughts on the situation? Who's right? Who's wrong? Again, there's more context to this to get a bigger understanding of the family and relationship dynamics, and can share to those who are curious. Thank you and happy holidays. I mean, personally, I think OP's wife is in the right here. I think whether it's culturally acceptable or not, if OP were to side with their parents, it would be kind of just submitting to their control, just giving into their expectations and demands, which aren't really that reasonable, I don't think. And especially, I think what matters most is what's going to make you happier going forward down the line. Siding with your wife or siding with your parents and potentially alienating your partner. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy entitled parent story, check out that video on the left, or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.